Welcome to the Patriotic Pulpit. Well, we're on the eve of a brand new election. Just a few days, the country will vote for a new president of the United States. Not only so, but many Senate races will be decided right here in the state of Texas. Ted Cruz is running against Allred. Of course, we hope that Cruz pulls it out and wins a victory here. It's very important, it's extremely important for the Constitution of the United States to maintain our freedoms in the state of Texas, to maintain freedoms in the United States, that Ted Cruz actually wins this election. But I want to talk about a few things pertaining to a speech that was given a week ago by Michelle Obama in Kalamazoo, Michigan, pertaining to in her support for Kamala Harris. But before we get to that, I want to make notice of this fact that in these speeches, not only in her speech, but also in many Republican speeches, isn't it interesting that we hear very little, if anything, about the Constitution of the United States? How is it that we can have people running for political office and not talk about the ruling law of the United States that is the baseline of our governing rules, and that is the Constitution of the United States? And it has everything to do with what Michelle Obama had to say in Kalamazoo, Michigan. It has everything to do with what was not said. It also has everything to do with what has been not said even on the Republican side. So let's just talk about for a moment the Constitution and how important it is that we recognize the Constitution as really the palladium of our liberties. So one of the things that is interesting is that we have on the Democratic side, the New York Times just reported this just the other day, that there are over 17 porn stars that have sided with the Democrats, and even the Democratic Party, or groups aligned rather with the Democratic Party, have put out advertisements which have pornography, people in sex acts, supposedly having some Republican knocking on the door and interrupting them. And the message is, of course, if you want the freedom to have pornography, then you vote Democratic. Isn't it amazing that we have gone this far in America where we have turned the Constitution upside down, inside out, and not even recognizing what is the Constitution, but the only thing that is ever talked about regarding freedom is some kind of freedom or freedom that we might have pornography. This is the Democratic line, freedom for pornography. That is the farthest cry from what our founding fathers had in mind when they talked about freedom of speech. What did they have in mind was that we have freedom to discuss political opinions without fear of government reprisal or government curtailment of our speech. But here comes out a report from the Department of Defense. Actually, this is written by Leo Holman regarding an interview that Kamala Harris had just within the last 2 or 3 years pertaining to what she wants to do with the Defense Department. I want you to listen to this. A video clip has resurfaced from May 2019, that's 5 years ago actually, in which Kamala Harris advocates weaponizing the DOJ against the speech that she does not like and the platforms that allow it. In the meantime, 1 month before the 10th presidential election, this is when Holman wrote the article, the U.S. Department of Defense has authorized the U.S. military defense intelligence components to use lethal force against American citizens. Lethal force against American citizens if requested by state or local law enforcement in an emergency situation. He says more on this in just a moment. But let's first go to the May 2019 video clip showing Kamala Harris unleashing her inner dictator. Speaking at an annual NAACP Fight for Freedom Fund in Detroit, Harris threatened, this is her quote, "We will put the Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice. We will double the Civil Rights Division and direct the law enforcement to counter this extremism." The extremism that she described is this: She's going to hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy. If you don't police your platform, she says, we're going to hold you accountable. So, regarding the First Amendment, really the cornerstone, coupled with the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, which she has stated in the past that she does not believe in the right to keep and bear arms in the Second Amendment. These two pillars, the freedom to speak, offer political opinions, as well in a public platform, as well as defend ourselves with lethal force, Second Amendment, both of these she does not believe. That is absolutely amazing. But what the Democrat Party is trying to do instead is that they're trying to defend pornography and the access to pornography by children, by adults, by anyone, the farthest thing in mind with the Founding Fathers and the First Amendment. That is how the Democratic Party is turning upside down what the Constitution is. It reminds me of what took place just the other day in Phoenix, Arizona, when Donald Trump was asked the question regarding Liz Cheney. He basically stated, and anyone can listen to the video clip, that she wants to be, and she is a warmonger, she is a war hawk. She wants to put our fighting men and women in harm's way in front of guns in foreign countries, in countries that we cannot name, we cannot put our finger on them on the map. And then he said that she ought to be herself go to war. She ought to stand in front of those guns. She ought to be the one doing that. What a great statement was that. But here's the mainstream media. They come away with the idea and they absolutely twist it, purposefully lying, prevaricating, saying that he wants to put her in front of a firing squad. That is the desperation, the wickedness of the mainstream media. They're absolutely corrupt. They're absolutely gone. And anyone who listens to the mainstream media, whether it be CNN, MSNBC, and all those other shows, anyone who listens to those, they are absolutely corrupt. That is a perfect illustration of it. So that's what's going on in our country. We have the mainstream media, the Democratic Party, the deep state in force against Donald Trump and the American people. Now, this is also interesting. Talking about our democracy, talking about a republic, the Democrats want, as they have stated very plainly, to overturn the very concepts of the Supreme Court by packing the Supreme Court with more justices. Why? Because they don't like the laws that were passed or the opinions that were given by the Supreme Court pertaining to abortion and Roe versus Wade. We'll talk about some of that in just a moment when we listen to Michelle Obama. But it is fascinating to note that the Democratic Party absolutely wants to curtail the Constitution by packing the Supreme Court, putting more justices in to get their way. This is hardball politics. And that's the reason that the deep state, which is basically comprised of hundreds, if not thousands, of unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., that control our government, that they have actually put up Kamala Harris without one vote of the American people. She was not democratically elected, but they don't care about that. The Democrats don't care about the Constitution of the United States. So having said that, let me just mention also something else before we move off of this topic, and that is one of the things that Michelle Obama stated in her Kalamazoo speech is that Donald Trump is amoral. That is, he has no morals. That is absolutely astounding coming from the camp from which it does. Think for just a moment. There's an article right now on the New American website. You can look at it. It's called "The Wall's Affair with the Daughter of a Chinese Communist Official Nearly Drove Her to Suicide." And here's the article. The Harris-Walz campaign is now dealing with another scandal. Tim Walz had a sexual relationship with the daughter of a top communist Chinese official. Team Harris has already had to explain away Walz's fake military record, his big lie about Tiananmen Square massacre, and other revelations. And now this from the Daily Mail. Jenna Wang, now 59 years old, wanted to marry Walz. But the Don Juan of the fruited plain left her high and dry. So sad was the jilted girl, she contemplated suicide. The affair invites the observation that a Vice President Walz, had the Daily Mail not disclosed it, could have been compromised by Red China's government. Walz waltzed between the sheets with Wang in 1989 when he spent time as a teacher in China, so his wife Gwen can't complain of adultery. And the affair was top secret, according to the Daily Mail. Walz showered her with gifts, seduced her at his pokey staff accommodation at No. 1 High School in Fashan in the Guangdong province. And the website continues this way. The lovers could not risk holding hands or showing affection in public because Wang's dad was a high-ranking figure in the Chinese Communist Party who had disowned her for fraternizing with a Westerner. The fact we couldn't touch or kiss in public just made it all the more exciting and intense when we were finally alone. We were deeply in love, and I wanted to marry him and start a family. When it did not happen, I was very unhappy and sad. Tim's behavior was very selfish. So his mistress speaks in China. This is just now coming out. So excuse me for not accepting Michelle Obama's statement about Donald Trump being amoral. Not only so, but it is plainly the fact that Kamala Harris rose to the top politically because of her long-standing affair with a married man, Willie Brown, in the state of California. This is something that people are not talking about at all. Now, it is the case. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is pure as the driven snow or pure as in white and clean as far as his morals are concerned. But it comes with very little grace that Democrats would talk about immorality with Donald Trump when this is the case continually in their party. But now let's talk about, and I want to play a clip here of Michelle Obama and a couple of statements that she's making as she speaks in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And here in this one, she's speaking about the election.
Being said, I got to ask myself, well, why on earth is this race even close?
Now, I want to say that is exactly the way Republicans feel. How is it the case that this race is even close? How is it the case that Kamala Harris, who has not really done anything politically except she has been so radical in her positions, that she herself was voted as the most liberal member of Congress? How is that the case? She does not believe in the First Amendment. She doesn't believe in the Second Amendment. She is immoral. How is it the case? And she rose to the top on her immorality. And let me just say this. When a man has an immoral affair, such as the accusation is against Donald Trump, it usually ruins their political career. But it is the opposite with a woman. And woman, on this case, she actually came to the very top on the back of that very affair. That's exactly what happened to Kamala Harris. And so the question is, how is it even close? You have a Kamala Harris who incidentally is basically aligned with the Communist Party in the United States. She's aligned with communists. Black Lives Matter is a communist organization. She bailed out of jail those people who are riotous in their behavior, destructive in their behavior. She bailed them out of jail, aligning herself with BLM, which is a Marxist organization. How is it the case that she, and by the way, her parents are both Marxist as well, her father a Marxist professor, how is it the case that this is a race that is even close at all? That is really something to contemplate. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back. We want to talk a little bit more about Michelle Obama's Kalamazoo speech, and I want to just summarize a couple of things very quickly before we listen to another clip, and specifically when she talks about women's reproductive health. But just think for a moment about a couple of items that she mentioned. One of the things was she said, you know what? Donald Trump has obvious mental decline. I thought when I heard that, I thought the Democrats absolutely, this kind of gets back to this when Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. I thought she called Donald Trump a fascist. You know what? They can't even define what is a fascist. They don't know what a fascist is. They don't know what fascism is at all. They don't even know what fascism is. They keep using the term, he's a fascist. They have no clue what it is. The truth of the matter is, communists have, for many, many years, used the term fascist as those, accusing those on their right, because communism is on the far, far left. As we know, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama herself, grew up under the communist influence. People like Bill Ayers and other people helped formulate, Frank Marshall Davis helped formulate Barack Obama. So they're all communist in their orientation. So anything that is to the right of them, they claim that's fascism. And that's the way that the hippies used to do in the 1960s. But that's because they come from a communist standpoint. But they don't even know what fascism is. But not only that, but this deal about when they go low, we go high, that has no bearing to the truth, has nothing to do with reality at all, because the very fact is that the Democrats, Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, they all just are going so low continually against Donald Trump. And isn't it such the depth of hypocrisy to talk about his mental decline, when in point of fact, just 3 months ago, Joe Biden was defended by all of the Democrats as one who is perfectly capable, mentally speaking, to act as president of the United States, until it came out in the debate publicly that, he's not mentally capable at all. He's in mental decline. And all of a sudden, Donald Trump's the oldest man running for president and he's in mental decline. They have no shame whatsoever in whatever they say, because everything they say, it just comes back on them. But I want to talk about a couple of things regarding her statements pertaining to women's reproductive rights. And I think she, of course, is talking about abortion. So let's just listen to a couple of comments that she makes pertaining to that.
I want to think about who do you think possibly would care more about our reproductive health?
Okay, let's just stop here for a moment. A woman's reproductive health. The Democrats are not only go as low as they possibly can, they go so low that they're hypocrites in everything they do and say, but they absolutely ignore science. Science shows emphatically, clearly, medically, that a child in the womb is just that, a human being. It is a human being from the time of conception. And it is not that they don't know. In 1973, I think it was, there was a number of doctors, medical experts, gynecologists who came in and testified before Congress of the United States. And they testified with one voice that a child in the womb is not a fetus. A child in the womb is a child. It is a person. And yet the Democrats continue to frame the entire issue as a woman's reproductive health or a woman's health. They absolutely, teetotally deny science. They deny reality. The Bible shows us very clearly that a child in the mother's womb is a human being. Exodus chapter 21, verses 22 and 23, God mandated that if a woman's child was injured when the child was in the womb, that it would be the same punishment as a child out of the womb. Wound for wound, burning for burning, stripe for stripe, life for life. Because it is a life in the womb. Psalms 139 in verses 13 to 15 shows us that David speaks that I am wonderfully and fearfully made. And he speaks about a person being made and intricately woven together in his mother's womb. Jeremiah chapter 1 and 5 tells us very plainly that Jeremiah the prophet said that God knew me in my mother's womb before I was born. Medical science, Bible, and common sense shows us that it is a child in the womb. Now, I have a different view pertaining to abortion than does Donald Trump, but he basically says that no abortion except for the life of the mother, for rape and incest and so forth, and those are the exceptions. But be that as it may, Michelle Obama ignores what he says regarding that. She ignores regarding the woman's health and a woman's. She goes on and tells the story about a woman on the table, and she's bleeding, and her life is in danger, and the doctor's afraid to perform the abortion because the abortion ban is in effect, and she might die, and all of that is so much nonsense. It is not true. She just absolutely gaslights the entire issue. But she does it beginning right here in this comment by saying, well, it's about women's health. It is not about the woman. It is about, there are two people. There's a child in the womb as well as the mother. And the Democrats steadfastly and flat-footedly refuse to acknowledge that particular fact. Let's hear what she else has to say.
And I just want to take a moment with this particular question, because there is so much that gets lost in the conversation about women's reproductive rights. And I want the men in the arena to bear with me on this, because there's more at stake than just protecting a woman's choice to give birth.
Now, right there, a woman's choice to give birth. I remember several years ago, I was sitting in a board meeting at the Wichita Falls ISD. I was teaching school at the time, and I attended a board meeting, and there was a black woman who sat behind me, and she was a big Michelle Obama fan, and she made this comment to me. She said, you know what? If y'all Republicans want us to have these children, then you have to pay for it. You have to pay for the doctor. You have to pay for the child care and all of that kind of thing. It just went on and on. You know what? The truth of the matter is that there is another choice to be made, and that is quit having sexual relations outside of marriage. If you don't want to choose to have a child, then don't have sexual relations outside of marriage. That's what it's for. It's a sacred relationship. And Michelle Obama absolutely falls in line with that woman who talked to me at the board meeting. She absolutely denies the idea that there is any choice for a woman other than, okay, we're going to have sexual relations, and now the choice is whether I want to have the child or kill the child, and that's basically what she comes up with. But the truth of the matter is, there is a choice to be made, and the choice is before you have sexual relations. And if we get back to that biblical injunction and biblical moral code, then this country would be a lot better off. But that's one of the things she points out regarding a woman's reproductive health. Now, there's something else here that she talks about, and she says this, I think it's later on in the speech, where she talks about you men need to take our lives seriously. And she says, you're not taking our lives seriously. So let's just listen to a couple of comments that she makes on that, along that line.
Do not put our lives in the hands of politicians, mostly men, who have no clue or do not care about what we as women are going through.
Now, did you hear what she said? She said, our lives are being put in the hands of politicians. How about the baby's life, Michelle Obama? How about the child's life? It is being put in the hands of wicked politicians such as yourself and your husband and the Democrat machine. who wants to kill the children. You're putting the lives, she's absolutely ignoring once again that life is in the womb. Science shows it, the Bible shows it, common sense shows it, but she denies that life is in the womb.
Who don't fully grasp the broad-reaching health implications that their misguided policies will have on our health outcomes. The only people who have standing to make these decisions are women with the advice of their doctors. We are the ones with the knowledge and experience to know what we need.
So then she goes on to tell us that we need to take women's lives seriously. The question is, when will you begin to take life seriously, life in the womb? Because when you decide to have a sexual relation, Michelle Obama, then you have decided to create life. And when that takes place, then God should be in control instead of you, instead of the wicked politicians who want to destroy life in the womb. That's what's happening. Now, here's something else that she makes mention of in the speech. And she says, we all want to turn the page from the Donald Trump years. Isn't it interesting that the Democrats have been in charge of the government in the president's office, what is it, for the last 12 out of 15 years? And the deep state, thousands of bureaucrats ensconced in positions in different agencies as well as world bodies such as the United Nations, the National Health Institute, the World Health Organization, and then we have national organizations such as the Department of Education, the Department of Human Services. All of these are filled with bureaucrats that are 95% Democratic leaning. And the Democrats have therefore been in charge of the deep state for as long as I have been alive. How is it that we're going to turn the page on that? We will not turn the page unless we have a Donald Trump in office and get back to getting rid of the bureaucrats that are controlling our country. As a matter of fact, I wondered if any Democrat that might be listening to this podcast might ask themselves the question, if Joe Biden is absolutely incompetent right now to run the country, and we know that he is, and Kamala Harris is not running the country, who is? Who is running the country right now? Well, I'll tell you who's running the country. The bureaucracy that is in place in Washington, D.C., and throughout the country and in world bodies. That's who's running the country. And they have been running the country for a long time. That shows us that what we need to do to turn the page is to get a Republican in office, and not simply a Republican, but a Republican not such as the Liz Cheneys of the world, who are globalists first, but Republicans who are nationalists, who want to put America first, such as Donald Trump. That's the only way that we can turn the page. The page or the book has been written for so many years by the Democrats and the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., aligned with the Democratic Party. That's who's been controlling our country. That's who's writing the book. If you want to turn the page, then you need to get out of the Democrat Party and you need to vote Republican in this particular election. That's what's actually happening in our country. Now, I want to talk about a couple of other things real quickly, and that is, number one, I think it is interesting pertaining to Kamala Harris that Michelle Obama says, well, she has all these policies and she's had all of these interviews and Trump refused to do it. No, the very opposite is the case. What policy has Kamala Harris stated that is different than Joe Biden? Well, she has stated plainly in an interview that she is going to not do anything differently than Joe Biden has done. Talk about not turning the page. Talk about policies. She hasn't not come out with any specifics on policies, excepting when she wants to copy Donald Trump. Not interviewing? How about this one? Just the other day, Joe Biden himself came out and called all Republicans garbage. That is, those people who are voting for Donald Trump, garbage. And yet the Democrat machine, the bureaucracy, edited that tape and tried to make it sound as if he didn't say it. After they were saying, well, he wasn't talking about it, he took it out of context. Well, if it was taken out of context, then why did they try to erase the tape? You know, the Democrats meet themselves coming and going. You don't know whether the snake that made the track is going south or coming back. That is exactly what they are. This is just a big snake, and we have to cut the head off of that snake if you want to kill the snake. That's what's happening in our country right now. And Michelle Obama represents the Democrat Party, the Democrat machine, Barack Obama. We need to get rid of him. I did not believe in what George Bush was doing, George W. Bush. I didn't believe in his father. I didn't believe in George W. Bush, even though they were Republicans, because they were internationalists first and foremost. However, George W. Bush, had the grace, after he was finished with the presidency, to step out of the way and let someone else take the helm. Has Barack Obama done that? No. The Democrats are not about to do that because they have the power in the machine, and Barack Obama has his hand on the helm. That's what's going on in our country, and our people better awaken to that fact real quickly, or we're going to lose this country. We'll find out in about 3 days whether we will have anything left of our country or not. If we put Donald Trump back in office, that will be great. And if we have Ted Cruz elected to the Senate of the United States, that will be great for the state of Texas. Vote Republican all down the line this election.